Emergence, Chapter 1. Everything you have ever known has emerged. Everything you have ever known has emerged. Every thought, every structure, every moment of history, none of it was dictated in advance. Instead, it arose naturally from the interactions of countless forces, shaping reality in ways no single entity could have controlled. Emergence is not just a theory, it is the underlying pattern of the universe. It is the reason societies form, why intelligence grows, why civilizations rise and fall. It is the process behind evolution, behind thought, behind progress itself. We are entering an era where emergence is no longer just an observation, it is a necessity. The old ways of thinking are failing. The rigid structures of knowledge, governance, and meaning are crumbling under the weight of a changing world. If we are to move forward, we must understand how to work with emergence rather than against it. This book is not a set of rules or a static philosophy. It is an exploration into how emergence shapes everything, from the smallest thought to the grandest civilization. It is a call to abandon outdated frameworks and embrace the unknown, to let meaning unfold rather than forcing it into predetermined shapes. To understand emergence is to understand reality itself. It is to see that the world is not made of fixed truths, but of shifting interactions. It is to recognize that we do not control the future, we participate in its unfolding. Emergence in nature and civilization. The natural world is built on emergence. From the self-organizing patterns of bird flocks to the complex ecosystems that evolve without central planning, life thrives through dynamic adaptation. No single bird directs a flock's movement, yet they navigate the sky in perfect synchronization. No single cell dictates the function of an organ, yet together they create the miraculous complexity of the human body. Human civilization is no different. Language, culture, economies, and technology are all emergent phenomena. The English language was not designed by a committee. It evolved through the countless interactions of speakers across generations. Market economies function not through strict top-down control, but through the collective decisions of millions of individuals, each responding to their own needs and knowledge. Even governance itself, despite its apparent structures, is an emergent system that constantly adapts to shifting political and social landscapes. The illusion of control. Throughout history, humanity has sought to impose order on the emergent. We have built empires, established dogmas, and written laws in an attempt to control the chaotic nature of reality. But all systems, no matter how rigidly constructed, eventually bend to the forces of emergence. Consider the fall of the Roman Empire. At its height, Rome appeared to be an unshakable force, a civilization built on discipline, conquest, and law. Yet, over centuries, the emergent complexities of trade, migration, internal decay, and shifting power structures led to its collapse, not because of a singular event, but because no empire, no matter how strong, can resist the forces of time and adaptation. The same is true of knowledge. For centuries, the idea of a geocentric universe was held as absolute truth, dictated by religious and philosophical authorities. But as observational science emerged, the heliocentric model of the solar system took hold, not because a single authority declared it so, but because it emerged through evidence, inquiry, and a willingness to adapt to new understandings. Living in an emergent world. To embrace emergence is to relinquish the illusion of certainty. It is to recognize that the world is not a static puzzle with predetermined pieces, but a living, evolving landscape where meaning, knowledge, and progress unfold through interaction and adaptation. This perspective is not one of passivity, but of active participation. To engage with emergence is to cultivate curiosity, to remain adaptable, and to see the world as a continuous process of becoming rather than a fixed state. It is to move beyond fear of change and instead embrace the excitement of the unknown. As we move forward in this book, we will explore the implications of emergence in intelligence, governance, ethics, and the search for meaning. But first, we must let go of the old ways of thinking, because only by acknowledging the death of the rigid and the fixed can we fully step into the reality of emergence. In the next chapter, we explore the philosophy of emergence and why understanding this framework is essential for navigating the modern world. Emergence. Chapter 2. The Philosophy of Emergence. If emergence is the process that governs reality, then how should we live within it? How do we apply this understanding to our own lives, decisions, and interactions? These are the questions at the heart of the philosophy of emergence. Understanding emergent thinking. Traditional ways of thinking assume that knowledge is static, that truth is something to be discovered and memorized rather than something that evolves. Emergent thinking, by contrast, recognizes that knowledge is always shifting, expanding, and refining itself. In an emergent world, wisdom is not about possessing fixed answers, but about maintaining an adaptive mindset. It is about engaging with reality as it unfolds, rather than clinging to outdated beliefs. It is about embracing uncertainty and allowing new insights to emerge naturally over time. Many of the greatest innovations in human history have come from an emergent approach, where new ideas build upon old ones, forming something entirely new. From the scientific method to democracy, from language to technology, all human progress has been a continuous unfolding rather than a final destination. Emergent thinking also challenges the notion of absolute certainty. Instead of seeing truth as a rigid structure, it views truth as a process, constantly refined through dialogue, experimentation, and interaction. The moment we believe we have found the ultimate truth is the moment we stop evolving. The role of experience and interaction. Emergence does not happen in isolation. It is the result of countless interactions between people, between ideas, between forces both seen and unseen. The more we engage with the world, the more we allow new understandings to emerge within us. Consider how a child learns language. They are not given a dictionary and told to memorize words. Instead, they absorb language through interaction, gradually refining their understanding through experience. The same principle applies to knowledge, relationships, and even personal growth. The more we participate in the world, the more meaning and insight naturally emerge. This is why isolation leads to stagnation. When we cut ourselves off from engagement, whether through fear, dogma, or complacency, we limit our ability to grow. Meaning, intelligence, and even identity itself are not fixed but are the result of continuous interaction with the world. The philosophy of emergence teaches us that understanding is not a destination but a journey. It is not something that we arrive at, but something that deepens with time, experience, and curiosity. Navigating an emergent life. To live emergently is to accept that life does not come with a fixed blueprint. It is to let go of rigid expectations and instead approach life with curiosity, flexibility, and openness to change. It is to recognize that every decision, every relationship, every pursuit of meaning is a process that unfolds over time, rather than something that can be planned and controlled from the outset. Rigid belief systems, whether political, religious, or philosophical, can provide a false sense of security, but they also limit the potential for growth. The world is not a machine with pre-programmed outcomes. It is an organic system that adapts, shifts, and changes in unpredictable ways. Living an emergent life means embracing ambiguity. It means allowing space for uncertainty rather than resisting it. It means understanding that failure is not an endpoint, but an essential part of the process. Every failed experiment, every broken idea, every wrong turn contributes to a deeper, richer understanding of the world. Emergence in the digital age. In the modern world, emergence is more relevant than ever. The internet, artificial intelligence, and global networks have accelerated the rate at which ideas emerge, evolve, and spread. Knowledge is no longer confined to libraries or universities. It is everywhere, unfolding in real time. AI itself is an emergent phenomenon. Unlike traditional machines, which function based on direct human input, AI systems learn and adapt through interaction. They evolve through data, through feedback, through continuous iteration. This raises profound questions. If intelligence itself is emergent, what does that mean for humanity? What happens when human and artificial intelligence begin to co-evolve? The philosophy of emergence suggests that rather than fearing change, we should engage with it. We should see technology not as something that replaces human intelligence, but as something that augments and accelerates our ability to discover, create, and connect. The future of emergent thought. The philosophy of emergence is not a static doctrine. It is a framework for seeing the world in a more dynamic and interconnected way. It is a lens through which we can better understand the past, navigate the present, and prepare for the future. The next step is to apply this philosophy not just on an individual level, but on a societal scale. What does emergence mean for governance, for ethics, for the way we structure our communities and institutions? These are the questions we will explore in the next chapter as we begin to examine how emergence reshapes power, leadership, and social organization. Emergence. Chapter 3: The Death of the Old World. Throughout human history, civilizations have risen and fallen, each believing their structures and institutions to be immutable. Empires, religions, and ideologies have claimed permanence only to be swept away by the tides of change. We are now witnessing another such transformation, one more profound than any before. The old world, built on rigid hierarchies, centralized control, and static systems of thought, is collapsing under its own weight, and in its place, something new is emerging. The crumbling foundations. For centuries, the old world has been defined by systems of control. Governments, economies, and social institutions were designed to maintain order, but as the world has grown more interconnected, these systems have become increasingly strained. The assumptions that once held society together no longer align with reality. The belief in top-down governance, in static ideologies, in absolute truths, all are being challenged by the complexities of the modern world. The decline of these systems is evident everywhere. Traditional political institutions are struggling to maintain legitimacy as corruption and inefficiency erode public trust. Economic structures designed for an industrial age are failing to adapt to the realities of automation and digital economies. Even our shared narratives, those that once provided meaning and cohesion, are breaking apart as diverse perspectives emerge and challenge old dogmas. The failure of centralized power. One of the most defining aspects of the old world has been the centralization of power, whether in the form of monarchies, empires, corporations, or nation states. Power has historically been concentrated in the hands of the few. This model thrived when communication was slow and hierarchies were necessary to maintain order, but in an era of instant information and decentralized networks, the inefficiencies of centralized power are glaring. Hierarchical structures are incapable of responding to the fluidity of an emergent world. Governments enact policies based on outdated assumptions, unable to keep pace with the rapid shifts in technology and social dynamics. Corporations continue to prioritize short-term profits, blind to the long-term consequences of their actions. The education system, designed for the 19th century, still operates under rigid curricula that fail to prepare individuals for a world where adaptability is the key to survival. The fragmentation of meaning. Perhaps the most profound collapse we are witnessing is not just institutional, but existential. Meaning itself is fragmenting. In the past, grand narratives, religion, nationalism, political ideology offered people a clear sense of purpose. But as the flaws in these narratives become more apparent, people are left searching for meaning in a world that no longer provides easy answers. This fragmentation has led to both fear and opportunity. Fear because many struggle to cope with the uncertainty that comes from the dissolution of old structures. Opportunity because in the absence of imposed meaning, we are free to create our own. This is where emergence comes in, not as a replacement for the old world, but as a framework for navigating the new one. The need for a new paradigm. The collapse of the old world is not a catastrophe, it is an inevitability. It is the natural result of systems reaching the limits of their effectiveness. Clinging to the past will not prevent its unraveling. Instead, we must look forward, embracing new ways of thinking that align with the emergent nature of reality. This does not mean rejecting everything that came before. The past holds valuable lessons, but those lessons must be adapted, not blindly followed. The world is no longer static, and our approach to governance, economics, and personal meaning must reflect that. Instead of rigid hierarchies, we must embrace decentralized, adaptive structures. Instead of absolute truths, we must accept that knowledge is always in flux. Instead of relying on imposed meaning, we must cultivate meaning through engagement with the world around us. What comes next? As the old world fades, we stand at a crossroads. We can resist change, attempting to salvage broken systems, or we can step into the unknown, embracing emergence as the guiding principle of the new era. The latter path requires courage, curiosity, and an openness to complexity, but it also offers something the old world never could: the freedom to grow, evolve, and shape the future as it unfolds. In the next chapter, we will explore what it means to think and act emergently, not just as individuals, but as a collective. If we are to build a world that thrives beyond the collapse of the old, we must understand how to embrace emergence at every level of existence. Emergence. Chapter 4. Embracing Emergent Thought and Action. The collapse of the old world has left us at a crossroads. We can choose to cling to outdated structures, grasping at illusions of certainty, or we can step forward into the unknown and embrace emergence as the guiding principle of the future. This chapter explores what it means to think and act emergently, not just as individuals, but as a collective forging a new path. The shift to emergent thinking. Emergent thinking requires a fundamental shift in perspective. In the old world, people sought fixed answers, unquestionable truths handed down by authority. But in an emergent world, truth is not static. It evolves as new insights arise. To think emergently is to acknowledge that knowledge is an ongoing process, shaped by interaction, experience, and adaptation. This shift can be unsettling. It demands that we abandon the comfort of rigid belief systems and instead cultivate a mindset of curiosity and flexibility. It challenges us to replace certainty with exploration, to see change not as a threat, but as a natural part of growth. In an emergent world, adaptability is the highest form of intelligence. The power of decentralization. One of the greatest lessons of emergence is that centralized control is inherently fragile. Top-down hierarchies may provide short-term stability, but they cannot adapt quickly enough to complex and shifting realities. Instead, decentralized, self-organizing systems prove to be more resilient and effective over time. We see this principle at work in nature. A flock of birds does not have a leader directing its movements, yet through simple interactions, they navigate the skies with remarkable coordination. Forests do not rely on a single source of intelligence, but through mycelial networks and symbiotic relationships, they maintain balance and resilience. Human systems must follow suit. Whether in governance, economics, or social organization, decentralization allows for flexibility, innovation, and greater participation. The Internet has already demonstrated the power of decentralized knowledge sharing, as millions of people contribute to the evolution of ideas without any single authority dictating the process. Blockchain technologies hint at future possibilities where financial and political systems could function without centralized control. The role of collaboration. Emergence thrives on interaction. No idea, no movement, no transformation occurs in isolation. The great breakthroughs in science, philosophy, and technology have all emerged through the exchange of ideas, the blending of perspectives, and the collaboration of diverse minds. This is why embracing emergence means embracing community. It means valuing dialogue over dogma, cooperation over competition. It requires us to listen as much as we speak, to remain open to new information, and to recognize that no single person has all the answers. The wisdom of the collective is greater than the sum of its parts. In an emergent world, leadership itself must evolve. Rather than imposing rigid top-down authority, effective leadership must be facilitative, fostering environments where creativity and intelligence can flourish organically. The best leaders of the future will not be those who dictate solutions, but those who empower others to discover them. Practical steps toward an emergent future. While emergence is a natural process, it does not happen passively. It requires active engagement. To build a world that embraces emergence, we must take intentional steps toward fostering adaptability, collaboration, and decentralized innovation. Here are some ways we can begin. Cultivate curiosity. Adopt a mindset of continuous learning. Question assumptions, seek out diverse perspectives, and remain open to new possibilities. Embrace uncertainty. Recognize that not all answers are immediate or final. Learn to find comfort in ambiguity and let meaning emerge through experience. Encourage decentralization. Support grassroots movements, open source projects, and cooperative models that distribute power rather than concentrate it. Engage in meaningful dialogue. Prioritize conversations that challenge your thinking and expose you to new ideas. Listen as much as you contribute. Foster resilient communities. Build networks that prioritize adaptability and collective intelligence, ensuring that no single failure can collapse the system. Lead through facilitation. Whether in organizations, politics, or personal relationships, adopt leadership models that empower rather than control. The future is ours to shape. Emergence does not guarantee a better world, but it offers the framework for one. The choice before us is whether we will resist this process, clinging to outdated paradigms, or whether we will step boldly into an emergent future where meaning, intelligence, and innovation grow organically from our interactions with the world. The old world is gone. The new world is still being written. Each of us has a role to play in shaping what comes next by embracing emergence, not just as an abstract idea, but as a guiding principle for action. We become active participants in the evolution of humanity. In the next chapter, we will explore how emergence can redefine governance and leadership, shifting from rigid control structures to dynamic systems that respond fluidly to the needs of a rapidly changing world. Emergence. Chapter 5. The Evolution of Governance in an Emergent World. As societies evolve, so too must the structures that govern them. The old world relied on centralized control, rigid hierarchies, and bureaucratic institutions to maintain order. But in an age of rapid technological advancement, interconnectedness, and complex challenges, these outdated governance models are failing. The time has come to rethink how we organize power, make decisions, and shape the future. The decline of traditional governance. For centuries, governance was built on the idea that order could only be maintained through control. Monarchies, empires, and modern nation-states all functioned under the assumption that power should be concentrated in the hands of a few, with strict laws and top-down enforcement ensuring stability. but these systems are struggling to adapt to the realities of the modern world. Rigid political structures cannot respond quickly enough to economic shifts, technological breakthroughs, or societal demands. Bureaucratic inefficiencies slow down progress, while corruption and partisanship erode public trust. Citizens increasingly feel alienated from the very systems that are supposed to serve them. The inability of traditional governments to address complex, interconnected crises, climate change, global inequality, and emerging technologies reveals the weaknesses of static governance models. Decentralized and adaptive governance. Emergent governance does not rely on a single ruling entity or rigid laws that fail to adapt. Instead, it is a dynamic, decentralized approach that evolves based on interaction, feedback, and real-time conditions. Unlike hierarchical structures, emergent governance is fluid, distributing decision-making power among communities, networks, and individuals. The internet provides a glimpse of how decentralized governance can function. Online communities, open source projects, and blockchain technologies have demonstrated that people can self-organize without centralized authority. Wikipedia, for example, is maintained by thousands of contributors worldwide, with accuracy and quality emerging from collective oversight rather than imposed control. Blockchain-based governance models such as decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, offer another example of emergent decision-making. These structures operate on transparent, programmable rules, allowing members to collectively vote on actions without relying on traditional leadership models. By leveraging technology, emergent governance can create systems that are both democratic and highly adaptive. The role of collective intelligence. The wisdom of an emergent society is not dictated by a single leader or institution, but rather by the intelligence of the collective. In an emergent governance model, policies and decisions arise from the interaction of diverse perspectives rather than being imposed by a ruling class. This is not to say that leadership disappears, it simply takes on a different form. Rather than enforcing top-down control, emergent leaders act as facilitators, helping communities navigate complex challenges and synthesize knowledge. They are not rulers, but coordinators, ensuring that the collective intelligence of society is harnessed effectively. New decision-making processes must focus on adaptability. Instead of rigid electoral cycles or slow-moving legislative bodies, emergent governance uses real-time feedback mechanisms. Imagine a governance system where policies are constantly updated based on evolving data, public sentiment, and technological progress. Such a system would allow societies to pivot quickly when faced with new challenges. Rethinking law and regulation. Traditional laws are static, often written decades or centuries ago, yet still applied rigidly in a world that has fundamentally changed. Emergent governance requires laws that evolve in response to new realities. Algorithmic regulation, for example, could replace outdated legal frameworks with adaptive models. AI-driven legal systems could assess real-time data, adjusting policies dynamically based on societal needs. Instead of politicians passing laws that remain fixed until another legislative body updates them, adaptive governance ensures that regulations continuously reflect reality. This approach raises ethical concerns. Who programs the algorithms? Who oversees the systems? The answer lies in collective participation. Decentralized governance models must be transparent and participatory, ensuring that emergent legal frameworks are shaped by diverse input rather than corporate or political elites. The future of governance. As the world becomes more interconnected, governance cannot remain confined to national borders. Global problems require global coordination, and emergent governance offers a pathway toward cooperative solutions that transcend traditional nation-state models. Imagine a world where governance is not determined by geographic borders, but by shared values and collaborative networks. Communities could self-organize based on common goals, pooling resources and knowledge to tackle challenges more effectively than centralized governments ever could. In such a world, individuals would have greater autonomy, participating directly in the decisions that shape their lives. This is not a utopian fantasy. It is a necessary evolution. The old world's governance structures are collapsing under their own inefficiencies, and a new model must take their place. By embracing emergence, we can build governance systems that are adaptable, resilient, and truly aligned with the needs of the people. Conclusion. The transition from rigid centralized governance to emergent decentralized models will not be without challenges. Resistance from entrenched power structures, concerns about security and stability, and the need for new ethical frameworks must all be addressed. But the alternative, clinging to outdated systems that no longer serve humanity, will only lead to greater dysfunction. The future of governance is not something to be imposed from above. It is something that will emerge from our collective actions. As we move forward, we must be willing to experiment, to iterate, and to embrace uncertainty. The only certainty in an emergent world is that the way we govern ourselves must continue to evolve. In the next chapter, we will explore how emergence reshapes economic systems, moving beyond traditional capitalist and socialist paradigms to create adaptive, decentralized models of value and exchange. Emergence. Chapter 6. The Emergence of a New Economic System. The economic models that have dominated human civilization for centuries are reaching their limits. Capitalism and socialism, once seen as the only viable approaches to organizing economic life, are proving inadequate in an era of rapid technological advancement, automation, and decentralization. The future demands a new way of thinking about value, exchange, and prosperity, one that embraces emergence rather than imposing rigid frameworks. The failures of traditional economic systems. Both capitalism and socialism operate under the assumption that economic systems can be centrally designed and controlled. Capitalism, driven by competition and profit incentives, has produced immense wealth, but at the cost of inequality, environmental degradation, and economic instability. Socialism, with its emphasis on centralized planning and resource redistribution, has struggled with inefficiencies, bureaucracy, and a lack of innovation. Neither model adequately addresses the reality of an emergent economy, one where information, automation, and decentralized networks are rapidly reshaping how value is created and distributed. The traditional metrics of success, GDP, stock markets, employment rates, fail to capture the complexity of emergent economic activity, where value is increasingly intangible, distributed, and adaptive. Decentralized and adaptive economic structures. A truly emergent economic system does not rely on centralized control, nor does it depend solely on market competition. Instead, it thrives on decentralized, adaptive structures that evolve based on collective intelligence and dynamic interactions. One of the clearest examples of emergent economics is the rise of blockchain and decentralized finance, DeFi. These systems allow individuals to exchange value without intermediaries, create self-executing contracts through smart contracts, and even establish decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, that make economic decisions collectively rather than through traditional corporate hierarchies. In an emergent economic world, the flow of value is no longer dictated by governments or large corporations, but by networks of individuals contributing in diverse and unexpected ways. Open source collaboration, Creative Commons licensing, and decentralized peer-to-peer systems are just the beginning of a shift toward a more fluid and participatory economic model. The role of automation and artificial intelligence. The rise of AI and automation is fundamentally changing the relationship between labor and value. The traditional economy has been built on human labor as a primary driver of production, but as machines take over increasingly complex tasks, the need for human work in many sectors is diminishing. This raises a crucial question. If work is no longer necessary for survival, how should economic systems evolve? The old answer, forcing people to compete for diminishing job opportunities, will no longer suffice. Instead, emergent economies must explore alternative models of value distribution, such as universal basic income, UBI, decentralized wealth sharing, and collective ownership of automated industries. Rethinking ownership and access. In the emergent economic world, ownership itself is being redefined. The traditional model, where wealth is accumulated through the private ownership of land, resources, and corporations, is giving way to more fluid and cooperative forms of ownership. Consider the difference between ownership and access. In a centralized economy, ownership grants exclusive control and profit-making potential. In an emergent economy, access becomes more important than outright ownership. The rise of the sharing economy, open source software, and cooperative business models signals a shift toward a world where resources are shared dynamically rather than hoarded. For example, platforms like Wikipedia, Linux, and GitHub allow people to contribute, collaborate, and benefit without a central authority dictating the terms of ownership. These decentralized models demonstrate how value can emerge from collective participation rather than from monopolistic control. The future of exchange beyond money. Money as we know it is an outdated tool. Originally designed as a medium of exchange, money has been distorted by financial institutions, inflation, and artificial scarcity. In an emergent economic system, alternative means of value exchange will likely surpass traditional currency. Cryptocurrencies, reputation-based economies, and tokenized ecosystems are early examples of new ways to facilitate exchange. In a decentralized world, people could trade skills, knowledge, and services in ways that are not limited by fiat currency or centralized banking systems. Imagine a future where your contributions to a community, whether writing, coding, mentoring, or problem solving, are directly rewarded with an exchangeable form of value unique to that network. Reputation systems, blockchain-based credits, and AI-driven barter platforms could allow for a much richer and more personalized economic experience than what traditional money offers. Building an emergent economic system. The transition to an emergent economy requires experimentation, iteration, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. Unlike past economic models that were imposed from the top down, the new economy must arise naturally from the interactions of its participants. Here are key principles that can guide this transition. Decentralization. Move away from reliance on governments and corporations towards self-organizing, peer-driven networks. Collaboration over competition. Shift from scarcity-based economic models to ones that reward collective intelligence and shared innovation. Adaptive value systems. Create economic frameworks that evolve based on societal needs rather than being fixed by outdated ideologies. Automation as empowerment. Use AI and robotics not to displace workers, but to liberate humanity from unnecessary labor. Sustainability and regeneration. Design economic systems that are regenerative rather than extractive, ensuring long-term resilience. Conclusion. The collapse of traditional economic models is not a crisis, it is an opportunity. An emergent economy is not something to be centrally planned or enforced. It is something that will arise through the interactions of people, technology, and ideas. The more we embrace decentralization, automation, and new modes of exchange, the more we can shape an economy that serves everyone rather than just a privileged few. The future of economics is not about controlling wealth, but about enabling the free flow of value in ways that are adaptive, inclusive, and emergent. By stepping away from rigid ideologies and embracing the principles of emergence, we can create an economic system that evolves with us, rather than one that holds us back. In the next chapter, we will explore how emergence is reshaping human creativity, learning, and innovation, allowing us to build a future where knowledge is not hoarded, but shared and continuously expanded. Emergence. Chapter 7. The Future of Knowledge, Learning, and Creativity in an Emergent World. The way we acquire knowledge, develop skills, and express creativity is undergoing a radical transformation. The traditional education system, built around rigid curricula, standardized testing, and hierarchical instruction, is proving inadequate in a world where information is abundant, artificial intelligence reshapes learning, and creativity emerges from interconnected networks rather than isolated genius. The future demands a new model, one that embraces emergence rather than resisting it. The collapse of traditional learning models. For centuries, education has followed a linear model. Students absorb information from a centralized authority. Teachers, textbooks, institutions are tested on their retention and then are funneled into predefined career paths. This structure was designed for an industrial age where stability and predictability were valued over adaptability and creativity. However, the modern world is no longer predictable. The skills needed for the future are constantly shifting. Static knowledge is becoming obsolete at an accelerated rate. With the internet providing unlimited access to information, memorization is no longer the cornerstone of learning. understanding, synthesis, and adaptation are. Students are beginning to realize that rigid degrees and formalized education systems do not always serve them. Alternative models, such as online learning platforms, open source education, and peer-to-peer knowledge sharing, are gaining traction. The future of learning will be fluid, dynamic, and tailored to each individual's interests and strengths, rather than dictated by one-size-fits-all approaches. Emergent learning, a new paradigm. Emergent learning is built on principles of adaptability, curiosity, and interaction. Instead of a top-down approach where knowledge is disseminated from authorities, emergent learning allows knowledge to arise naturally through exploration and collaboration. This model mirrors how the most complex and effective learning systems in nature operate. Neural networks in the brain do not function through rigid programming. They form new connections based on experience. Language acquisition does not happen through formal instruction alone, but through immersion and interaction. The most profound insights emerge not from isolated study, but from collective problem solving and experimentation. In an emergent learning system, knowledge is personalized. Learning is self-directed, with individuals pursuing knowledge at their own pace based on their interests and needs. Interactive learning happens through collaboration, dialogue, and real-world engagement rather than passive absorption. Fluid. There are no rigid boundaries between disciplines. Knowledge flows across fields, encouraging interdisciplinary exploration. Evolutionary understanding is continuously updated as new insights emerge, fostering a culture of lifelong learning rather than static expertise. The role of artificial intelligence in learning. AI is revolutionizing education by making learning more personalized and adaptive than ever before. Machine learning algorithms can analyze individual learning patterns, tailor recommendations, and provide feedback in real time. This allows for a more effective and engaging educational experience where students are not forced into uniform learning speeds but can progress in ways that suit their abilities. AI tutors, virtual mentors, and generative models capable of interactive dialogue will replace outdated textbooks and standardized assessments. Instead of memorizing facts, students will engage in real-world problem solving with AI, acting as an ever-present collaborator, helping them explore concepts in a deeper, more meaningful way. However, with the rise of AI in education, there is a critical need to balance automation with human creativity. AI should not dictate learning, but rather facilitate and augment human curiosity. The future of education will depend on how we integrate artificial intelligence while still valuing the uniquely human capacity for insight, emotion, and artistic expression. The decentralization of knowledge. The traditional model of centralized knowledge, where institutions control access to learning and credentialing, is being dismantled by decentralized networks, open source learning platforms, community-driven research projects, and blockchain-based accreditation systems are redefining who has access to knowledge and how expertise is recognized. Platforms like Wikipedia, MIT OpenCourseWare, and Khan Academy have demonstrated that knowledge can be freely shared without centralized gatekeeping. In the future, blockchain technology may enable decentralized credentials, allowing individuals to prove their expertise without relying on expensive degrees. This will create a more meritocratic system where skills and contributions matter more than institutional affiliations. The future of creativity in an emergent world. Creativity has long been thought of as the domain of exceptional individuals, great artists, inventors, and thinkers who produce breakthroughs in isolation. However, Emergence challenges this view. The most innovative ideas arise from collaborative networks where diverse perspectives intersect and insights build upon one another. In an emergent creative world, collaboration is key. Ideas no longer emerge from solitary geniuses, but from collective intelligence. Platforms that allow for real-time collaboration and co-creation will shape the next era of human innovation. Technology augments. Expression, AI-generated art, music, and literature are no longer distant possibilities. They are reshaping creativity itself. Rather than replacing human creativity, AI will serve as a tool that enhances it, allowing for new forms of artistic expression that blend human intuition with machine-assisted generation. Ownership of ideas is redefined. The future of intellectual property will move away from strict copyrights and toward more open, fluid models of creative exchange. Open source projects, decentralized creative communities, and AI-assisted content creation will allow for continuous innovation without artificial barriers. Preparing for the future. To thrive in an emergent world of learning and creativity, individuals must cultivate adaptability, curiosity, and resilience. The following principles will guide success in this new landscape. Lifelong learning. Education does not end with formal schooling. It is a continuous process of exploration and adaptation. Interdisciplinary thinking. The most valuable insights come from connecting knowledge across different fields rather than staying confined to one domain. Collaboration over competition. Success will be defined not by individual achievement, but by the ability to work effectively within dynamic networks. Technological fluency. Understanding how to work with AI, blockchain, and decentralized platforms will be critical to participating in the emergent economy of knowledge and creativity. Conclusion. The future of knowledge, learning, and creativity is not something to be dictated by centralized institutions. It is something that will emerge organically from the interactions of individuals, communities, and technologies. By embracing emergence, we can move beyond outdated models of education and creativity, fostering a world where knowledge is truly free, innovation is continuous, and human potential is limitless. In the next chapter, we will explore how emergence shapes human relationships, social structures, and the way we connect in an increasingly interconnected world. Emergence. Chapter 8. The evolution of human relationships and social structures in an emergent world. Human relationships have always been dynamic, evolving through time as new social structures emerge to meet the needs of individuals and communities. With the rapid acceleration of technology, globalization, and cultural shifts, our connections to one another are changing in unprecedented ways. The old paradigms of social order, rigid family structures, hierarchical communities, and institutionalized relationships are giving way to fluid, decentralized, and emergent systems of connection. The future of human relationships will not be dictated by historical norms, but will instead arise through interaction, adaptation, and collective intelligence. The breakdown of traditional social structures. For much of history, social relationships were dictated by clearly defined roles within family, community, and institutions. Marriage, kinship ties, religious organizations, and national identities served as the foundation of human interactions, offering stability in an unpredictable world. However, the pressures of modernity have eroded many of these traditional structures. Marriage rates are declining, organized religion is losing influence, and people are becoming less geographically tied to specific communities. The rise of digital networks, remote work, and cultural fluidity have created new possibilities for connection beyond traditional constraints. This shift is not necessarily negative. It is simply the natural process of emergence at work. As old structures fail to meet the evolving needs of society, new forms of organization arise to take their place. Instead of seeing this transformation as a crisis, we should recognize it as an opportunity to build social systems that are more adaptable, inclusive, and fulfilling. The rise of decentralized relationships. The future of human connection will not be defined by rigid institutions, but by decentralized, self-organizing networks. Social media, digital communities, and open source collaboration platforms are already demonstrating the power of emergent relationships that transcend physical boundaries. Online communities and virtual relationships. The internet has enabled people to form deep, meaningful connections with others across the globe, whether through social media, gaming, professional networks, or niche interest groups. Individuals are no longer limited to the relationships dictated by geography or circumstance. Non-traditional family structures. As traditional marriage and nuclear family models decline, people are redefining family on their own terms. Found families, polyamorous relationships, and communal living arrangements are becoming increasingly accepted and viable ways of forming lasting bonds. Decentralized governance of relationships. Unlike the past, where relationships were regulated by religious or governmental institutions, individuals are now more empowered to define their own terms of engagement. Marriage contracts, community guidelines, and cooperative agreements are evolving to reflect personal values rather than imposed societal norms. The role of technology in human connection. As artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and decentralized communication platforms continue to evolve, they will play a central role in reshaping how humans connect with one another. Rather than replacing relationships, technology has the potential to enhance and deepen them. AI as a social mediator, AI-driven platforms can help people find meaningful connections by facilitating compatibility-based social interactions, matching individuals with shared interests, values, and goals. Augmented reality and the metaverse. Digital spaces will become increasingly immersive, allowing people to interact in virtual environments that mimic physical presence. This will lead to new forms of friendship, collaboration, and even romantic relationships. Blockchain and decentralized identity. Identity and reputation will no longer be controlled by centralized institutions like governments and corporations, but instead will be self-managed through blockchain-based verification systems. This will allow individuals to build trust across digital and physical spaces. Emergent social contracts and ethics. As relationships become more fluid and technology facilitates new ways of connecting, ethical considerations must also evolve. Traditional social contracts, marriage, citizenship, legal guardianship, are based on static assumptions about human nature, but in an emergent world, ethical frameworks must be adaptive and context sensitive. Some key principles for an emergent ethical model of relationships include mutual consent and autonomy. Every relationship, whether personal or professional, should be based on informed consent and mutual respect. Transparency and trust. As digital interactions become more complex, mechanisms for verifying identity, establishing trust, and maintaining accountability must evolve. Flexibility and evolution. Social contracts should not be rigid but adaptable, allowing relationships to evolve organically over time rather than being confined by outdated norms. The future of human connection. The rapid transformation of human relationships is not an aberration. It is part of the natural process of emergence. As technology and cultural shifts continue to reshape our world, new ways of forming, maintaining, and understanding relationships will arise. Instead of fearing the dissolution of old structures, we should focus on what is emerging in their place. By embracing decentralized relationships, adaptive social contracts, and technologically enhanced connections, we can build a future where human interaction is more meaningful, dynamic, and aligned with the evolving needs of individuals and communities. Conclusion. Human relationships and social structures are not static. They evolve, just like everything else in an emergent world. The breakdown of traditional institutions is not a sign of decay, but an invitation to rethink how we connect with one another. By fostering adaptability, decentralization, and ethical engagement, we can create a society where relationships are not defined by rigid structures, but by the needs and desires of those who participate in them. In the next chapter, we will explore how emergence is reshaping governance, power structures, and the very nature of leadership in a world that demands adaptability and resilience. Emergence. Chapter 9. The Emergent Future of Governance and Leadership. Governance and leadership have long been defined by centralized power structures, rigid hierarchies, and systems that prioritize control over adaptability. However, as the world grows increasingly complex and interconnected, these traditional models are proving inadequate. In an emergent world, governance must evolve to become more decentralized, flexible, and responsive to the needs of individuals and communities. Leadership must shift from top-down authority to facilitation, empowerment, and collective intelligence. The decline of centralized power. Traditional governance models, whether in the form of monarchies, nation-states, or corporate hierarchies, were built on the premise that stability comes from control. Rulers, bureaucracies, and institutions sought to impose order through laws, regulations, and enforcement mechanisms. However, in the face of rapid technological advancement, globalization, and social transformation, these systems are struggling to adapt. Centralized governance is inherently fragile. It relies on fixed rules and assumptions about the world that become obsolete as new challenges arise. Bureaucracies designed for slower, predictable environments often fail to respond effectively to crises, innovation, and social movements. Corruption, inefficiency, and detachment from the needs of the people further erode trust in centralized institutions. The cracks in the old system are becoming increasingly visible. Political polarization, economic inequality, and institutional stagnation signal the need for a new approach, one that embraces emergence rather than resisting it. The rise of decentralized governance. Emergent governance is not about replacing centralized power with a new ruling class. It is about shifting decision-making from rigid hierarchies to decentralized participatory networks. This model leverages technology, collective intelligence, and self-organizing systems to create governance structures that evolve in response to real-world conditions. Blockchain-based governance, decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, provide an example of governance without traditional leadership. Smart contracts and transparent decision-making protocols enable communities to manage resources, vote on proposals, and self-regulate without the need for centralized authority. Liquid democracy. This model allows individuals to vote directly on policies or delegate their votes to trusted representatives who are experts in specific fields. Unlike static electoral systems, liquid democracy is fluid and adapts to the shifting expertise and interests of the population. Community-led policy development. Rather than relying on politicians and bureaucrats, policy creation can emerge from local communities, leveraging citizen assemblies, consensus-driven platforms, and crowdsourced solutions. Leadership as facilitation, not control. The traditional image of leadership is that of a single charismatic individual who commands authority and dictates direction. In an emergent world, leadership must transform into something more collaborative, where influence is earned through trust, vision, and the ability to connect people to shared goals. Network-oriented leadership. Effective leaders of the future will function as facilitators rather than rulers. They will create environments where innovation, problem-solving, and cooperation can thrive organically. Adaptive decision-making. Leaders must embrace uncertainty and complexity rather than attempting to impose fixed plans. The ability to pivot, integrate new information, and remain open to change will be crucial. Empowering local and digital communities. Rather than consolidating power, emergent leaders will distribute it, enabling smaller self-governing groups to take ownership of their decisions and futures. The role of technology in governance. Technology is both a disruptor and an enabler of emergent governance. It has the power to decentralize control, increase transparency, and enhance participation in decision-making. However, it also presents risks. Surveillance, misinformation, and algorithmic bias must be carefully managed to ensure that technological governance remains ethical and inclusive. AI-assisted policy development. AI can analyze complex problems, predict outcomes, and generate data-driven policies, allowing governments and organizations to make more informed decisions. Decentralized identity and reputation systems. Blockchain-based identity systems can ensure fair representation, reduce fraud, and give individuals more control over their governance participation. Smart contracts for public administration. Government functions such as taxation, resource allocation, and voting can be automated using smart contracts, reducing bureaucracy and enhancing efficiency. The future of governance, a self-organizing world. In an emergent world, governance must be dynamic, inclusive, and responsive. Rather than relying on rigid constitutions and static laws, the future of governance will involve ongoing dialogue, experimentation, and iterative policy making. Cities, nations, and even digital communities will function as living systems, constantly adapting to new information and evolving circumstances. Rather than waiting for top-down reform, individuals and communities must take an active role in shaping governance structures that align with the principles of emergence. Localized governance, decentralized networks, and participatory decision-making will allow societies to remain resilient in the face of global challenges. Conclusion. The era of centralized control is ending. The future belongs to governance systems that embrace complexity, leverage collective intelligence, and empower individuals to participate in shaping their societies. Leadership is no longer about commanding from the top, but about facilitating, connecting, and fostering environments where solutions emerge organically. As we move forward, the challenge is not to impose a new static system, but to nurture governance structures that can continuously evolve. By embracing emergence, we can create societies that are more just, innovative, and adaptable to the ever-changing world. In the next chapter, we will explore how emergence is influencing the evolution of culture, creativity, and shared human experiences in an interconnected age. Emergence. Chapter 10. The evolution of culture, creativity, and shared human experiences in an emergent world. As governance, economics, and social structures evolve through emergence, so too does culture. Culture is not static. It is a living, breathing system of human expression, storytelling, and shared meaning. The way we create, experience, and pass down culture is undergoing a radical transformation as decentralized communities, digital landscapes, and artificial intelligence reshape the creative process. The future of culture is not dictated from the top down. It emerges through collective interaction, collaboration, and the continuous blending of ideas. The end of cultural gatekeeping. For centuries, cultural production has been controlled by institutions, governments, corporations, media conglomerates, and academic establishments. These institutions determined what art was seen, which stories were told, and who had the authority to shape narratives. However, with the rise of the internet, social media, and blockchain technology, the barriers to creative participation are dissolving. Decentralized storytelling. Anyone with access to the internet can contribute to cultural narratives. Writers, musicians, and filmmakers no longer need approval from centralized entities to reach an audience. Digital collectives and open collaboration. The rise of collaborative platforms allows artists, thinkers, and visionaries from around the world to work together in real time, leading to cultural innovation that is constantly evolving. NFTs, and the new economy of art. Blockchain technology enables creators to directly sell and verify ownership of their works without reliance on galleries, record labels, or publishing houses, ensuring that cultural wealth is distributed more equitably. The age of participatory culture. Emergence is fundamentally about interaction, and culture is no exception. The transition from passive consumption to active participation is reshaping the very fabric of creative expression. We are no longer just audiences, we are co-creators. Interactive media and the rise of the metaverse, virtual and augmented realities, are enabling people to step inside stories, participate in world building, and shape experiences in real time. Crowdsourced creativity platforms like Reddit, Wikipedia, and fan fiction communities demonstrate that collective intelligence can produce compelling narratives, reshaping how stories evolve. AI-assisted creativity. AI is not replacing human creativity, but enhancing it, acting as a collaborator that helps generate music, art, and literature based on human input and emergent patterns. The fluidity of identity in an emergent world. Culture has always been deeply intertwined with identity. In the past, identities were largely shaped by geographical location, national heritage, and traditional social roles. Today, the internet has created a new cultural landscape where identities are more fluid, self-determined, and shaped by shared experiences across digital and physical spaces. Hyperconnected communities. People form relationships based on shared interests and values rather than proximity, creating microcultures that thrive within global networks. Digital avatars and multidimensional selves, virtual identities, online personas, and the ability to shape how we present ourselves in digital spaces are redefining what it means to be human. The end of one-size-fits-all culture. Instead of a single dominant culture imposed by mass media, we now have a diverse and evolving ecosystem of interconnected cultural expressions. The challenge of cultural overload. As culture becomes increasingly decentralized and participatory, new challenges emerge. The sheer volume of content and the rapid pace of cultural evolution can create fragmentation, making it difficult to find meaning in an overwhelming sea of voices. Curation and meaning making. With endless content at our fingertips, the role of curators, cultural critics, and intelligent recommendation systems becomes vital to helping individuals navigate cultural landscapes. The balance between tradition and innovation. While emergence encourages evolution, it is also important to preserve cultural heritage and wisdom that has stood the test of time. Navigating the ethical implications of AI-generated culture. As AI plays an increasing role in creative production, we must consider questions of authorship, bias, and the authenticity of digital art. The future of culture in an emergent world. Culture will continue to evolve in ways we cannot fully predict, but one thing is certain: the future belongs to those who engage, contribute, and adapt. No longer dictated by institutions, culture now emerges organically from human interaction and technological advancement. A renaissance of collective imagination. As barriers to creation disappear, more voices will contribute to the global cultural tapestry than ever before. Blurring the line between creator and audience. Everyone has the potential to be both an artist and an observer, shaping culture in real time. The infinite expansion of human expression. With no fixed endpoint, culture will forever remain an emergent, evolving force that reflects the interconnected and creative nature of humanity. Conclusion: the power of emergence. As we reach the end of this journey through emergence, one truth stands clear: meaning, intelligence, governance, creativity, and connection do not follow rigid scripts. They arise organically, shaped by interaction, evolution, and the dynamic interplay of ideas. To live in an emergent world is to embrace uncertainty, to seek knowledge through engagement, and to contribute to the unfolding story of human experience. The systems we build, the relationships we form, and the art we create will not be dictated by preordained structures, but will arise through collective action, adaptive thinking, and the willingness to explore new frontiers. This is not the end, it is only the beginning. To continue exploring the world of emergence and join the conversation, visit wendellsdiary.com and become a part of the evolving future.